Good morning, beloved family of light. So I wanted to talk about why humanity is like a dog chasing its own tail. I believe all of us have probably seen that at some point in our lives, right? We have seen a dog chase its own tail. And from the human perspective, we either think it's kind of funny or ridiculous. It's obviously a pointless endeavor. We all recognize those three things about it if we witness a dog chasing its own tail. But I'm returning from a trip right now that was extremely unexpected. And I went way beyond anything I've ever experienced before. And this is what's interesting. Before I get into why humanity is like a dog chasing its own tail, which, without me even saying anything, I'm sure a lot of you may be able to conjure up all kinds of analogy to, without me even uttering a single word. But I want to explain something that's just happened. And that is, I took 2 grams of tea, of psilocybin tea, of my own mushrooms that I've been growing for the first time. This is the first time, or I should say, this is the first time I've made tea from the mushrooms I've grown. And it was just 2 grams. And I don't know what's different about this because I've had penis envy from stuff my brother has grown. I've had these other mushrooms from that another couple have grown, which were stronger than the penis envy that my brother grew. But I've been using his spores and growing my own still, just because it's an enjoyable hobby. I don't know what the difference is, but it was light years beyond what I was expecting and had been consuming as a tea from these other mushrooms from other people. I don't know if it just happened, something was different in the batch I grew, or if it's a shift of overall, I don't know how to put it, but as I've said in my other videos, when you cultivate a relationship with the fungi, things change over time. I've said this so many times. I've witnessed it occur. And many may think that's just a figment of my imagination of a person that's, using a drug, but it's not. Anything you put your attention on and your respect to and your love upon in life, that relationship will change. And it will always, if you're putting love into something, it's going to improve that relationship. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's your family, whether it's your business, whether it's a hobby. It doesn't matter what it is. You put love into something, and that relationship is changing. And this is what I speak about with your relationship of actually using psilocybin and respecting the fungi. And maybe there's something to that even in the growing of it. And that by my consuming the stuff that I am growing now, that I have integrated my consciousness into the process. Maybe there's something to that as well. I don't know. This is the first time, so I'm just sharing that with you. And that 2 grams taken at 2 a.m. in the morning took me so far out of my body, so fast, and it was so seamless. I just dissolved so readily. Like I didn't even think about it. My body just wasn't there. I was gone. I was traveling. I was working out problems. I was seeing things. At one moment, I was redesigning my next client's house. In the next moment, I'm understanding something greater about the power of free will and the universal consciousness, universal mind, is how I'm going to term it in this recording. And then slowly, as I came back into realization, this is the craziest. I shouldn't even use the word crazy. This is the most impressive aspect of my experience this morning, was that the moment I realized that I had actually taken mushrooms this morning, once that even came back into my consciousness, like hours later, 2 hours later, that I was like, oh, I'm a human being and I had actually taken mushrooms, and that's what happened. Like that has never happened to me before. I have never been that far removed from my physical form before, where you just, I don't know, I've always had like a tether. I guess that's the best way to put it. I've always had a tether to my humanity. I guess I'll say a tether to my humanity before. But this morning was different. That it was like that tether was gone. But I returned safe as can be, and empowered with a greater understanding that I've never had before. So I'm going to try to capture this. Well, here's one thing I've learned from this journey this morning is, it's not even a learning, it's remembering that I'm going to communicate to you. And that is, at some point, you will never be able to describe what you see in words. At some point, it's impossible to convey to anybody in words what you just experienced. Am I attempting to describe any of this in words is really pathetic, but I'm going to endeavor to do it to a very minor degree. It will never do it justice. The first-hand experience of these things, anybody who has first-hand experience in these things will understand exactly why I'm saying this, because words will only be able to touch the very outer limits. And at some point they just fail. Because in order for me to experience some of the things I experienced this morning, I literally have to forget the human consciousness, the limitations of it. It's just gone. That's what happened this morning. It was dissolved. It was like it was like swimming in pure universal mind for a while. completely untethered. There was there wasn't even a feeling of love or hate. It just was. It's like the dichotomy of love and hate is just an educational tool for humanity for a very small fraction of their existence. And yet, while we are on the planet endeavoring through this classroom, it feels like it is all encompassing. It feels like even, I mean, I can say it like this. We know how much of humanity is not understanding the power of universal love, right? That they wallow in hate like a blackened tar in their life. And hate is everything that is not love. It is jealousy. It is every struggle. It is dislike. It is mild dislike. Hate is classified as all these things. It is mild dislike. It is jealousy. It is anger. It is frustration. It is anxiety. All of this is an opposite. It doesn't matter how you classify it. It is all the same. Because it is the lack of love. Everything that is not the frequency of love is hate. It's black and white. But what I'm trying to say this morning is, when I went for that swim in universal mind, it was beyond love. Or it wasn't the dichotomy of that human experience of the battle of love and hate wasn't present. It just wasn't even there. It was so far beyond that and removed from that. As if that was just some dream in itself, that entire human experience. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, and like I said, words just utterly fail trying to describe some of these things, but having the complete freedom of not even remembering any part of my humanity for that period of time and just swimming in that, I'm just going to say, universal mind. And being able to do anything instantly. Anywhere I wanted to go, anything I wanted to think about, boom, just there. And being able to see it, from a detached perspective, like working out problems or being taught about the power of the free will this morning with no interference from a physical body laying in bed. I call that interference, because just knowing you have a body, just knowing it's laying in bed, knowing you have to take a breath every few seconds is literally interference. And that's all I can say about it in comparison to my experience this morning. All right, so enough of that. I don't want to just be out in the cosmos, but I want to come back to the point of the dog chasing its tail. Because that's the condition of humanity. It's a form of insanity. Because here we are, God's an embryo in this classroom, misusing our free will to create conditions of strife of whatever magnitude and whatever thousand different variations humanity is capable of creating strife. They have done it, right? We see that around us everywhere. And so the dog chasing its tail analogy is likened to mankind because we are creating our problem from scratch. And then we try to find a solution to that problem in a roundabout way. Do we not? We look to other people to help us to solve this problem. Or we read books to try to help us figure out how to solve a problem. All the while, we are the source. We are the solution. We are the creator of the problem from the get-go. And therefore, we are the solution in ourselves. But we don't recognize that. Humanity as a whole does not recognize that. They don't embrace that. They can't understand the power that they use every single day to uphold the ridiculous problems in their life, the reinforcement that they're constantly doing because it is habitual. So the insanity of a dog chasing its own tail is a perfect analogy to the human condition. Because we create the problem, then we look to the outer world, whether it's through pharmaceuticals or psychology or books or a doctor or foods or whatever it is. It's all the same. Looking outside yourself for the solution of a problem that we've created ourselves. Every single bit of it. Can I ever explain it any more clearly? To a person who doesn't believe the words I just uttered, you will spend the rest of your life and maybe future lifetimes imprisoned in a self-imposed prison. Because there's only 3 things that I am aware of that can break a human being out of the insanity of chasing its own tail. And the only 3 things I know that can do this are accidents being number 1. Accidents is the way life slaps human beings in the face. And these accidents come in the form of physical trauma. Actually, it's always physical trauma of some sort, whether it be a car accident, a fall, or a disease like cancer. All of these things, all these types of human accidents, I'm just going to classify them all as accidents, even though accidents don't really happen. It's all a return to the individual of their misuse of their frequency of life, of their consciousness. It ripples back to them and slaps them in the face when it's full of a discordant frequency. When their misuse of their thought, feeling, and spoken word through an entire lifetime comes back and slaps them in the face with accidents of whatever nature they be. That is a very powerful teaching tool that may have the chance, doesn't always sink in. Sometimes the human being goes into utter despair and stays into their insane thinking. But sometimes it is they break free momentarily to have a glimpse of reality. It's a very small percentage that happens to. All right, number 2 is discipline. Discipline is something that can break a human being out of the insanity of chasing their own tail. And by discipline, I mean utilizing tools that we have learned from other teachers in our life, whether it be the Dalai Lama, whether it be from Jesus, whether it be from Krishna, Muhammad, Sai Baba, or the local flavor of guru that's floating around the world this day. Whoever it be, if we utilize something to a degree that can break us out of the insanity of chasing our own tail, then that discipline has succeeded. But I'm going to say, in order to utilize a discipline to that degree takes amazing willpower in the face of the insanity that enmeshes humankind today in this, especially in this age of social media. There is nothing more powerful to keeping humanity leashed and cut free at the same time as social media. Because yes, there is a lot of tools of freedom circulating on the internet now to help people free themselves. But there is also every manner of insane distraction to keep humanity completely bogged down. And these come in all kinds of flavors, especially politics nowadays, especially this culture of outrage over whatever it be, whatever the flavor of outrage it is. Nothing keeps people locked into discordant energy, discordant frequency, as some form of political discussion or outrage. It is just another link in the chain that binds human consciousness to a frequency that keeps them enslaved. Now, the third thing that can break the condition of chasing your own tail is psychedelics. And as of a year ago, I guess I probably would have been speaking these same words, but maybe not with as much certainty as I speak these words now. Because like I've said in other videos, I have not been doing psychedelics my entire life. I did them a little bit in my 20s, or 18 to 20, 18 to 21. That was like the only range I even experienced. It was super small amount. But here I am, almost 50 years old. Almost. I never thought I would be uttering these words to be sharing on what a powerful tool I think psychedelics are. To being able to break the insanity of a dog chasing its own tail, of that human condition of the mind and emotions and the words they use. Psychedelics can definitely shatter this and give a person a freeing experience. Especially once they work through their own bullshit that's been holding them back. And by bullshit, I mean every discordant emotion. Every emotion you think is just a normal human thing to experience is bullshit. Because anything that is not a joyous love is hate. And you have to understand this to free yourself from it forever. When you see everything of the human condition, I mean, every last drop of grief, every last flutter in your feeling that you see in another human being saying, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, I don't like that. You know, all of that is hate. And it holds you back like a chain of iron. Can I make it any more clear? It doesn't matter how intense it is. I mean, the intensity does matter. But it is all a chain of iron. And you have to make a decision at some point. Do you want to be wearing a chain of iron around your neck for the rest of your life? Or are you going to cast it off? And make a decision that you are done with these human feelings. Because the moment you do, you make room for the divine feelings to take root in your mind and your emotional body. And when you make room for those things, you will want for nothing else. When you can experience a moment of divinity, you will want to never again experience the lows of human behavior. And you won't have to. It takes some time, but you can develop a consciousness that almost never touches the human realm of emotion again. And you will be stronger for it. You will be empowered for it. You will bless everybody you come in contact with by doing this. Because it's a permanent change in your frequency. Your resonance changes. Because the resonance of love and divine understanding is a much higher frequency than the misery of mankind. And by misery, I mean everything of the human condition. I'm talking about the misery from the level of the billionaire to the person who doesn't even able to scrape enough food off to feed their family. From that whole dichotomy of human experience, it's all human misery in one form or another. And like I've said in other videos, the billionaire can be imprisoned way more than the person who's just struggling to maintain the nutrition of their body in some starving portion of the world. I shouldn't even say that, because we have, even in America, we have levels of squalor that we can't even fathom. Most people don't even know it exists. But the level of squalor of the human condition, even found in America, is just as great as any other part of the world. But I just make this recording to share my experience this morning, and as I returned to my human consciousness, back into the body, I started having, when I could actually put words and thoughts to some of the experience. Like, again, it barely touches my experience. These words I used this morning are literally touching the outer fringes of the things I experience on very frequently. And that I wish everybody could experience. Because there is no way you would put an ounce of your free will into creating more energetic chains of strife if you could have the briefest experience of what I feel psychedelics can lead a person to experience. But as I always say, these are only a temporary tool. And your own consciousness depends on how well you wield the tool. And this is something that science will never understand. Or I hope it does. It will. Actually, I can't say those words. Someday it will understand this. But they have to stop looking at the world. They can't dissect the world in the way they're dissecting it. They can't completely separate, I'm going to say, church and state, because that's the condition of science. We try to do that in our government, the separation of church and state. But in reality, you cannot do that. You cannot try to make decisions by tying half your consciousness behind your back. Does that make sense? That's probably the clearest way I can say it. If you're going to only try to utilize a portion of your understanding, that doesn't make any sense. You want to utilize all your understanding from the biggest picture. If you're going to make wise decisions in life, you want to have access to all your faculties. I don't want to go too far down this road. But what I'm trying to say is, at some point, people need to grow up in their adherence to the so-called sciences and start to unleash the part of their consciousness that can take them way beyond those restrictions. Because the epitome of science nowadays is still scraping the bottom of potential. In relative understanding of what our potential is, it is dealing with the dregs at the bottom of the barrel. I don't know how else to say it. But the moment you experience universal mind and compare it to the human condition, you will know exactly why I'm uttering these words. because the power of consciousness is so much greater than any material thing. The roundabout way mankind goes to solve their problems through the material world, through eating this, that, or the other thing, or, reading the books or talking to the doctors. You're literally talking to going to doctors to find a solution to these things is like one enslaved person going to another enslaved person, looking for an answer to slavery. That is how insane it is. If you're looking for a permanent solution out of slavery, you don't go to the enslaved. The permanent solution to everything in life is the raising of your frequency, and that can only happen by the broadening of your consciousness through the use of your free will. That is the only permanent solution, because consciousness is everything. It pervades everything, every cell of your body, all material matter. Everything is consciousness. It responds to itself. It can take a shape. It can take the form of anything. But the difference in humanity is that they are endowed with the creative fire, and this we term free will. Free will is your endowment as a creator of the universe, and no other part of life has free will. The animals do not have free will. Beings of nature do not have free will. Even the angels and there's so much hierarchy to life outside of the human condition. Mankind only knows them by angels and other terms, but even these individuals do not have free will. Only the children in this classroom have the power of free will. And that is why the angels serve us. They tend to us because we have a potential that no other part of life has. And that potential is to become a responsible custodian of free will. If we can make it out of this classroom and graduate. So, I think that's really as far as I need to go today. If I keep talking longer, I'll just be rehashing the same stuff. But I hope I've said things in a clear and concise manner that can be understood. The importance of increasing your frequency, increasing your resonance through maintaining a higher consciousness as often as possible, in whatever manner you do that, whether it's a discipline, whether it's psychedelics, and I sure hope it's not accidents. Because accidents are a last resort. When nothing else is working, you get accidents. And none of you want that. So take the reins and find solutions to raise your frequency before accidents happen. Because they are not accidents. They are your own frequency returning back to slap you upside the head, saying, please pay attention. Please do better. All right. With that, I'm signing out. I love each and every one of you. May you be strengthened by these words this morning.